I'd like to call this special budget meeting of the Council of the Village of Chase, held here at the village office and via Zoom on February 18th, 2025 at 4 p.m. to order. And number two, we need a motion to adopt the agenda. Councilor Stevens, Councilor Corbon. All in favor? That's carried. No adoption of minutes, 4 no public hearings, 5 public input on current agenda items. And yeah,
Mayor, if I could just ask this question of clarity, I think there's somebody waiting in the waiting room. Oh, they're not now, sorry. Okay. There they are. Thank you.
I didn't ask staff, but I'm wondering if they're comfortable if we allow the public ask questions as we go through, or do we want to have them ask it?
Your thoughts on that, Mr. O'Flaherty?
I just think we'll leave it either at the beginning or end, otherwise it just gets
Yeah.
into a big, huge debate and we're not gonna get anywhere.
Okay, so there is nothing to be asked at the end.
So it's.
Well, at the beginning,
Just leave it the way it is.
yeah.
Okay,
So will public input at the end?
there's just, on this agenda, there's just public input at the beginning of the agenda. That's what I was asking. So stick with that.
I think, Mr. Mayor, if council's okay with it, adding public input at the end.
We have,
Council's comfortable with that, then the people can say about their questions.
so we amend the agenda then?
Yes, and add an item. Which is public input on all municipal items.
So how do we do that?
I'll make a motion that
Yes.
we amend the agenda to say that we will, there's an opportunity for members to speak about input on all
Any
any
municipal.
municipal
Yeah,
matter.
At the end,
And
that it.
seconded. Councilor Stevens, any discussion? All in favor?
Oh, I just had one discussion. Can we just keep it the same length of time as the regular?
Yes.
Okay, that's.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you, everybody. So we have public input on current agenda items, and then there'll be an opportunity when we're done for the public, and we're gonna do that at, is that gonna be like number, what number is that?
Be number 10, and then we'll make 10, 11,
Number 10.
and 11, 10, and
Public-
it will be
10
12.
will be public input.
Yep. Opportunity for the public to speak on any municipal.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anybody here from the public that wants to speak now, and you also have a chance to speak after? Okay, it's your name and address?
Dale Blanchard, 411 Larch Street. I can wait till after.
We can speak now and after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me and my wife moved here in 2019. And we've gone through hell with our health and issues we're having. And I told my wife I'd speak on this. I would like council and mayor to go forward with the thing in mind to keep, is that we are all struggling to get through life. We have our issues. Last year, the taxes and utilities went up more than any other year since we've been here. And it gets to a point where you're struggling whether you want to buy glasses to read, or if you want to buy physio or medical equipment to get better. I'd just like for everybody here to please keep in mind that there are people that are trying to decide whether to pay bills or get better. And it's a hard thing to juggle in the current environment. And I think it would be nice if we didn't have a huge unexpected tax increase again this year. So we can maybe get a little bit ahead, so we don't have this anvil hanging over our head all the time. And that's how I want to start.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jean,
I'm going to follow his lead because of the increases that this council has put on the seniors, single people living in the community constantly over the last 5 years. And you've done nothing to bring it down and make life easier for people at all. I've talked to you before. I've read you all the statistics. And still nothing is done. You know, even about having a meeting at 7 o'clock at night so the other townspeople could come and they're not at work. All ignored. And I think it's time to start listening to the people who live in this town. And there's a lot of them really struggling hard. And you guys just increase the rates. Increase the taxes. We pay the highest taxes in BC. That's all I've got to say, and I know probably it'll hit on deaf ears like it always does.
okay, thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, see none. Thank you, you
No,
guys.
I don't.
And we have no reports. Here you go, Gina. No unfinished business, and we're on to new business and 9.1 strategic plan status. Highlights, CAO, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're just gonna have a quick PowerPoint presentation, and I've handed out copies to everybody as well. So I'll start with, so basically I've got a slide for each area in our strategic plan. And just showing some highlights of some of the projects that council has given us direction to work on. So under the first slide. Thank you, Sean.
And are you gonna take questions from council?
Yes, anytime. So questions from council during any time during this.
Okay, thank you.
So the first section is the governance and finance. This is just an overview basically of kind of the areas that we're still working on. There's a lot of projects that we actually have completed. Right now, we're looking at renewing our development cost charges. So as we've talked to you about before, our development cost charges bylaw is fairly old and definitely needs updating. We've done a lot of the projects that are included in the existing bylaw, so we want to include some new projects so that when we do have development happening, we can get appropriate development cost charges from the developers to help pay for the infrastructure that's going to be needed to ensure that those new people that do move into the community have the right services. Water rates, something that we're doing today. We talk about this every year. So ongoing reviews with objective for fund to self-sustain, to not be subsidized by taxation. That's something that is in the local government legislation, is that we aren't, I mean, we're not in a illegal position, but it is recommended that the utilities fund themselves through the utility rates. So something we're working on today and we talk about quite often. Adams Lake Indian Band Sewer Agreement. So we're just finalizing or working on finalizing the new agreement. One of the things that I'd like to point out with this is that we do receive sewer from Adams Lake Indian Band quite regularly. We get information from them about any new builds and any new hookups. So we do charge all of their properties for the actual user fees, excuse me. And also we're looking at being able to recover some capital funds from some of our previous infrastructure improvements. So, and they're well aware of this coming to them at some point.
So we pay so much for sewer every household.
Correct.
What are they paying?
You wanna answer that, Deb?
They pay the same bylaw rate as everybody else. We don't have a separate rate for them. That's something we could. Council on.
They should have, and it should be more, right? More than what we're paying. I mean, it's our stuff. It was built for our community. And they never had a pond to put anything in, so we allowed them to come over here, right?
If I can just add to that, Councillor Conick, so basically what we've discussed three things at a staff level, so we've discussed getting this agreement updated so that we can make sure we're appropriately charging for the user fees and we'd like to take a look at those user fees during this process of us reviewing all of that arrangement with them. So that's something that is definitely on our radar. We also want to look at delineating the types of sewer hookups. So is it a single family single family townhouse? Is it a single family regular residential? Is it an institutional hookup? So we're looking at all of that stuff through this process
Yeah.
to make sure that we are collecting appropriate amounts of money from it.
Yeah, because they're expanding over there. They've got some subdivisions that they're gonna be putting in here, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be that long. And
Yeah,
our
they've
sewer
done a lot of
system
work
is-
in the last couple of years.
And if we can sell it a little bit more, it's gonna be easier on the taxpayer here. Then everybody's gonna have to-
True.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely on our radar.
I was gonna ask this, during the public works manager's presentation, but this just fits so well, so I guess through Mr. Mayor, through the CAO to the public works manager, I guess how much more can our water, like our facility handle? And, do you have any, worries about Chase, growing and then us also tying in with Adams Lake?
Through the CAO, don't have any concerns about the overall capacity. We're currently working with that $5.8 million grant, that we are looking at the current volumes that we currently have there. We're also taking a look at potential future volumes, that we would be dealing with through our own OCP and future zoning stuff. As well as keeping in mind the possibility of Nisconnet possibly at some point in time looking to tie into our system. Kind of just back to some of the rate issues. One of the things that we also have to kind of keep in mind is that at any point in time, we have to make sure that this service is sustainable and sustainable on our own. Because when we do start taking a look at different rates, if for instance, we were to up the rates of people from outside the community, there are a lot of grants available right now for First Nations. And if we think that we're in a position that we can get some additional revenue or that sort of thing, that may actually not be the case. So we just want to make sure that we're sustainable as well, that we can scale up if needed and scale down if necessary as well. So that's something that we're keeping in mind as we do our planning processes.
Thank you, that's really, really nice to hear, because I see a future of additional revenue there, and that's fantastic, so thank you very much.
Councillor Conick.
We're not staying down there. You go down in the summer, them shitters are right freaking full. And the more you put in there, the more, because it's just drained, it goes out and it's supposed to drain into the ground and that. And if it wasn't for the pressure that's on top of it, it's pushing it through, you wouldn't go anywhere. It's not sustainable, there's no, and what they're gonna do with this ground, you're gonna put a degritter in and an exhaust fan on something and maybe do a pump. No. It's not. There's no friggin' way, if you start putting the sonnets in there and pumping in there. So it will not last, that system was the basic system that was ever put in anywhere. It's just absolutely basic.
So just for council's interest, right now, we're just going, this is just a rough, go through the strategic plan. Like the idea of the meeting today wasn't to go into in depth on every one of these ones, it's just staff letting us know where we're at. Generally, there will be chances to go in depth on all of these things at a future meeting. So this is just general in this part, staff's just letting us know generally where we are. And there'll definitely be a chance to dig into this more.
In other words, shut your trap.
No, it's just,
No, well, Dan asked the question and that, and Mike answered it and stuff like that, but I happen to bloody well know.
Yeah.
There's no friggin' way it will.
okay, continue.
Okay, so on the other item on this one is the sale of the Third Avenue property. We discussed this recently. So that, all the, services have been hooked into that land and we are proceeding to put that, up for sale. So that'll get us a bit of a revenue stream. Next one is asset management and infrastructure. So we've talked a little bit, a few times about the Mill Park boat launch. At this time, we're looking at the design for the wharf at the current location. So we've got some funds that had been allocated out of our own communities funds that we had received from the province. And council's given us direction to look at putting a wharf beside the current boat launch. So that will come back to council. Bay Drive Road shoring, and I'm calling it shoring because it's basically gonna be shoring up part of the road so it doesn't slough off into houses below. That's underway. Council gave us direction a couple of meetings ago to proceed with that project. The arena, we're doing an energy audit and that's being funded through consulting fees. So we've been connected to some pretty expert ice making folks. And so we're getting an energy audit done at the arena, so they can give us some direction and some ideas about how we can apply for other funding to perhaps do some upgrades to the ice making equipment to other aspects of the building. This is in addition to the condition assessment that we have some grant funding to do this year as well.
When did they, sorry, when did they think that would be done? You know, like the looking into the ice making machine and stuff like that.
I can't remember exactly. It's probably gonna be a couple of months. They have some on-site meetings this week with the facility manager. And they're pretty crackerjack. They know what they're doing. So it's something that they focus on. So I'm anticipating a couple of months. Could be a bit longer, but
Yeah, sooner the
yeah,
better, because
sooner
that's
the
gonna
better,
be a
yeah.
big, that's gonna be a big cost.
it
for us
is,
to get the
yeah,
ice.
for sure. And I mean, the ice making equipment in there has been kind of limped
It's
along.
worn.
It's 25 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's work.
so, yeah. Bay curling rink, this is something that came forward to council in December. This is a feasibility study that the club has made arrangements with a company out of Victoria. They've got some funding through FCM to do a feasibility study to find out again what they can do to save energy costs, upgrade some equipment. There are grant funds available. They would have to obviously apply for those funds. But this is something that will give us more information on what can be done and where can we find some funding to do some of the important things that need to be done. That also includes the idea of a cement floor being installed in the rink at some point so the facility can be used for other things. And again, sewer treatment plant upgrade. So that's the macerator headworks. The idea of that is to make the plant a little bit more efficient because it won't be having to deal with a lot of non-organics or inorganics in the burbulating system. I call it the burbulating system, but the lagoon system.
With the macerator, when it comes in, like plans and that, so council will have some kind of say in the
Yes.
macerator? and
Yes,
that?
yeah,
And I'm hoping Councillor Connaught will hear more when the Public Works speaks next.
Yeah.
On this and the finance.
yeah, and actually, Mike, if you could speak to that during the sewer section of the utilities, if that's okay, that'd be great. Okay, next we have emergency services and planning. So the fire department compressor purchase, that's an install that's been completed. Again, that was a piece of equipment that was really, really old, from the 1980s and old in the 1980s, but it was, yeah, that's a long time ago now. So that's been installed and completed. We got some grant funding for that. Luckily, we saved a few bucks on that project, so we were happy about that. So not as much public taxation dollars went into that project as we had anticipated. The evacuation plan maps are being finalized for the public, so Michael Henderson's working on getting those so that they're a little easier to understand by the public. So our evacuation plan is pretty comprehensive. It's pretty complex as well, so that's being finalized. Floodplain bylaw project is proceeding. We got some grant funding to do this project. Basically, what it will do is allow us to put some bylaws in place to restrict and regulate construction in floodplain areas. And it will help us to be able to monitor that better over the course of the future, because we know that we're getting all kinds of weird weather issues and wildfires and flooding potential and all that. So we want to make sure that we're making sure we're on top of that so that we're not allowing people to build where they shouldn't be building.
And this was something the province mandated?
Yes.
We did?
Yes, it was
Yeah.
part of, and it's part of the funding that we got from the province to do this project, yeah. Structural protection unit upgrades, so this spring, the Fire Smart coordinator is gonna be doing an assessment of, or the kind of an additional assessment. The fire department has provided us an inventory. He's gonna do an additional assessment of what we've got in the little trailer that we have now purchased, or that we purchased last year. And we do have some grant funds in our Fire Smart, budget to allow us to do some upgrades. Over the next couple of years, we want to get that trailer into a space where potentially we could actually lend it out to other communities. We can use it in Chase. We're not restricted at that by any means for that. But we do have some funds available to upgrade it so that in a couple of years, we could probably ship it out to other communities if it's needed and we don't need it.
Is this mostly for the fire department, this structural protection?
Yeah, it is. I mean, they'd
Upgrades,
be using it. They'd be
Yeah,
using it.
I'm just thinking that Public Works needed something.
I mean, I don't know that the grant funding that probably is pretty specific to Fire Smart only.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
it would be for Fire Smart, it would be for the reservoir, right?
Yeah.
Little generator up there, power goes out.
Yeah.
Cause you still have to send a signal. They do have a small little pump, but you could keep one up there, right? And just
Yeah.
open a thing.
Don't know that the structural protection unit would specify that particularly, but we can look at trying to find some funding in the Fire Smart program for something like that. Okay, next one is economic development tourism area, so cellular service improvements. We're continuing to discuss things with various providers. Hoping that somebody's gonna step forward and do something that will help our cell service be in better shape. Broadband improvements, so we're still working with the Shuswap Economic Development Society on this project. And recently we received some, a reach out from the province of BC who has some funding available for broadband improvements. And we're just working through some things with them to see if there's any opportunities for Chase. Right now, we're not really eligible for funding because we have TELUS providing a service, even though we don't think it's that great, but the feds in their program, they see it as adequate. And we've said to the province, we don't think our system is adequate at all, and we'd like to have it reviewed. So we're working through that process right now. And then supporting the Chase Chamber and the Together Chase Initiative for Community Improvements and Planning. Council supporting the Chase Chamber to help them provide the visitor information service. And we're all many of us participated in the Together Chase Initiative to bring things forward that make our community a little bit more lively and better. And, you know, encourage our volunteers because they're very important people in our community. Community enhancement, so summer recreation program, it's extremely popular and council is being asked again this year to support it financially. Development approvals procedure initiative, this project has begun and we should be getting something in the next 2 to 3 months from the consultant. This involves brochures, basically procedures, bylaws that basically outline for developers all the things they need to do, all the hoops they need to jump through to make sure that their developments are going to be the best they can be for our community. Within reason, of course, cost-wise and that sort of thing. Public washrooms, so we're just in the sort of some more discussions with the Lions. As you know, they brought forward a proposal to fund downtown area washrooms. So we're just in discussions with them about a few other potential location options. And we'll be bringing that forward to council very soon for hopefully some decisions. Communications relationship building, we're still having regular meetings with our local indigenous community leaders. And ongoing in various types of communications to and with the public, including public budget meetings, sunflower stuff, Facebook stuff. Mail drops, we put out double-sided information and things in the mail once in a while. We do a newsletter regularly, so we're trying so hard to get as much information out to the public as we can. And if anyone has any other ideas of how they'd like us to provide that information, we're totally open to hearing any ideas. To make sure that we can reach to everybody. Climate action was another area, so we have a climate action committee. They're working on a few different educational projects, anti-idling or proposing to urge people not to idle when they're sitting waiting for the train or they're sitting in front of the grocery store. And so they're working at various different ideas. They've suggested the SenseNet technology demonstration. There's going to be a report coming forward to the council next week about that initiative. Our Fire Smart coordinator sits with us on that committee, Councillor Conant and Councillor Herman as well. So they come up with some pretty good ideas, and their idea is to educate and to promote good practices so that we can all make sure we can breathe the air. And active transportation, so the last one, we have accessibility plan that should be finalized within the next 6 months. That's where we need to start a committee. We need to set up an accessibility plan. And then we need to look at all of our areas in town that we need to basically improve upon to ensure that accessibility is available to everybody. All of the projects that we do within our active transportation plan include the consideration of accessibility. So any kind of trails that we are developing, we want to make sure that everybody can use them where possible. And then the Scatcherd Mountain Trails, ongoing work with the Shuswap Trail Alliance for planning and some trail development in the future. And that's it for now.
Any questions from Councillor Stevens?
Yeah, just first a comment on the Climate Action Society. If the public only knew how beneficial that committee is to our town as a whole, it would blow your mind. Just an incredible group of people doing great things for the community. Mr. Mayor, I was just saying that about the accessibility possible committee. I would like to be considered for that committee. But I would like to just dial it back to the cellular service improvements. So we, CEO Heinrich noted the federal government sees us as adequate. Maybe it's time for us to reach out to Mel Arnold. And I think we got to get the wheels really going here. I actually had a great conversation with a business owner recently, actually just like a couple days ago, and they noted that the internet as is not adequate for now business solutions, and moving into the future, it's not adequate. And we just want to attract good business, and I really think we need to go not necessarily gloves off, but wheels up, and we really need to start hitting this hard. There's over 20% of people now work from home. I work from home, my partner works from home, and it is so hard to take a Zoom meeting at home. The internet's going out every time. But anyways, I digress a little bit there, but I just really hope that we can really just push this one a little hard this year and see how we can get towards fiber internet. And if that involves MP Arnold, then maybe we draft a letter or something. But thank you very much. That's what.
So anything else from council? Motion to accept for information, Councillor Stevens, Councillor Conant. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, CAO.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Next, 9.2, we have water, sewer, garbage, utilities budget. There'll be a presentation from the CFO and the manager of public works. And they have asked for, they're going to show a slide and then council can ask questions. And this is, I wasn't trying to hold you up, Councillor Conant, but your questions will have more effect here, like, because we're we're actually dealing with that issue. So if you remember those two questions you had, this will be, yeah, this will be this will be more effective if you ask them here. So CFO and Manager Public Works, you guys are up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council, staff, and the gallery. This is always a tough time of year. We understand that people are struggling, and we as staff have a duty to let our counselors know what the systems need. So we'll start, there we go. Just a recap of our budget process. So right now I'm in the process of doing both the audit, year-end process, and working on the budget. So the numbers that we're bringing forward in our actuals are hopefully pretty close to where we're gonna be at the end of our audit season, but there could be material things that still come in the next couple weeks that I have to include in the 2024 year ends that might change our numbers a bit, but as part of our process, Joni, Ms. Heinrich, our CAO, we meet with the departments to review the various parts of the budget. I work on the presentations to bring forward to council. We have to adopt our annual 5-year financial plan by May 15th of each year, and in doing that, we have to work backwards to make sure we have 2 meetings to do our financial plan and our tax rate. But today isn't about tax rates, it's about our water, sewer, garbage services. The goals of local governments is to not run deficits. We try very hard not to budget that way. Sometimes it happens, it has happened. And our goal as staff and council is to focus on the financial needs of our services. Just a quick recap, our taxation fund service the community as a whole. It's our development services, it's our fire services, it's our administration, parks, and our individual services, our water, sewer, and solid waste. We call them self-funded. So the user fees that we collect in those services should be paying for our sewer. Moving on, so Mr. Baker and I thought, we will go through each section. We'll do water first, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end, and we can come back and decide if we want to do some questions or comments or whatever, and then we'll do water and then sewer and then garbage and close it up at the end. So I don't know how I got that nice little water thing, but it's pretty cool.
And if that doesn't work for council, the questions kind of at the end of each section, if you're kind of sitting there and you've got 6 of them or something like that, maybe just let them know, and I think we can kind of change on the fly.
Yeah. Pretty flexible. So jumping right in, so we're going to start with the water service because that's our biggest contentious issue. So I pulled the budget brought the budget forward. I've got the 2024 actuals in there, and then we'll kind of project out 25, 26, 27, 28. Guys, I did want to make a comment and say, our 2023 revenues were 680,000. So we, as you guys as council, have done really well with bringing our revenue up. Like listen, we needed to bring it up. Our system has been running a deficit for so long. Even 2023, because the rates didn't increase like at the beginning of the year, we still had a deficit at the end of 2023 of 143,000, which, plays into this 618 at the bottom. So this number at the bottom is our running deficit right now. So at the beginning of 2024, and this is just operations, this has nothing to do with the capital side. So our water system was sitting at a $619,000 deficit when we started 2024. Can you see that there? So comparing our budget to actual, in 2024, so looking at the admin line here, this water admin, so this is our wages, our hydro, our utilities, staffing costs, insurance for the buildings and stuff. We have had an increase of actual over budget. The water system is, the water and the solid waste are the two systems where we have to have backups when our staff member is taking holidays or is sick because of, well, one for the interior health legislation, and the solid waste, we have to have someone to if a driver is sick. So the wages are a little higher, plus we had the collective agreement that was settled in 2024, so that brought our wage up as well. That's pretty much like where the increase is in this, the 273 to 290, so looking at the 24 budget to actual. Then the next line that where we've gone over is in the treatment line. So this is our chemicals, our UV treatments. This past year, there's been some, I'd say, equipment failures, is that what you call them? Or equipment purchases, so a UV piece of equipment that's about $18,000 that had to be replaced, and looking at 25, we have to buy a second one, so that's why we have an increase here, so we should have two on hand. We had to replace a turbidimeter, which was about $11,000, so, and a UV lamp, which comes out of the States, and by the time we get it, it's about $6,000. So there was some heftier bills that came through in the treatment line this year. Which still our 2024 actual right now is leaving us in a deficit. And going forward, the budget I have on this page 6 for you guys is just a status quo. If we kept the water rates the same, you know, we'd collect about 425 in the consumption and 394 in the flat rate. That would leave us in a deficit right now. Carrying on. I just wanted to throw this slide up there just to show you, you know, where we've been, where we come from, where we're sitting at right now. So we have the first rates in 2024 that were based on the 60 cubic meter minimum charge, which worked out to $495 for annual fees, not thousands, sorry. And then when we had the rates change in July to the 30 cubic meter, the minimum charge for water there was $411 for the year. Most of that we know. And then I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Baker to.
Could you just quickly go back 2 slides for just 1 second?
Yep.
So when we were talking about the UVT and the turbidity meter and that sort of thing too, a big part of the reason that we've had to include that in our operational expenditures is because of our current financial position and the fact that we're sitting in deficit. Normally, we would be taking that amortization number, that 360, 363, 365 number, and that's going into reserves, and that replaces equipment that fails. Currently, we don't have that reserve because it's in deficit, and so when the equipment does fail, it has to come out of operational expenses, and that's where we end up going over budget. But now maybe we'll just go forward to those.
Can I just stop for a second? We were gonna ask questions after each,
Section.
yeah,
You can stop now if you
Yeah.
have questions right now.
I just wanna ask council, because you went through some financial
Yeah.
stuff there. That's. Does anybody on council have any questions on this? Because I do.
Okay.
It's just the basic stuff I like to look at. So like, for this year, we budgeted, or like our total operational revenues were 828,000.
Oh.
Our actual?
Right here, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking really basic.
Yep.
And so our operational expenses are 454.
Yeah.
So we take the 828, subtract 454. Is that what we're doing?
Well, no, because we still have to pay the interest on the debt.
So we subtract that.
We subtract that
And-
and the amortization.
So that comes to 877,000. So that's the 48,000 that we were short.
Yes.
So how does that work when you've got below that, the 2024 actual?
So down here, this is our running deficit. So this is like the bank account.
So,
And because it's a positive, that means it's a deficit. That means this is money that's still owed to,
so that's owed from before,
yes, yeah, it's a running total that's
from
10 years ago. Yeah,
oh, okay,
it's like,
thank you. Any other questions from council at this time? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so, now we get into kind of some of the fun stuff here. In the fall of 2024, council received a presentation from our financial modeling consultant, Waterworth. Council was shown the current financial position and the current financial trajectory of the service without any intervention or change in the billing process. As you can see in this slide, our cash position is the black line at the bottom. So as you can see, by 2030, the water service is projected to be in a $1 million deficit. The blue is our operating costs. Or sorry, yeah, the operating expenses. And then we had our fixed and variable costs are the blue, are the brown and the orange. And currently that was about a 50-50 split. And where that comes from is the base fees, is the fixed costs. And then we had those consumption fees, which is the yellow on top, or the orange. And so you can see that currently in 2024, we are pretty bang on, but as we project out into the future, it continues to get worse if we stay on the same plan as we currently are. Go to the next slide, please. So working through the numbers, staff with the assistance of our consultant, Waterworth, proposed that we restructure our billing process to make sure that the fixed costs are included in the base fees, all of those fixed costs. This includes things like staffing, asset management, and capital maintenance. This would account for about 80% of the cost of the water system. And where that's important is when we're talking about residents maybe that don't live here year round, that sort of thing. 80% of the cost of provision of service to them would be maintained whether you're here using water or not. And the rationale for that is that we still need to staff our water treatment plant. We still need to have pipes out in the street that are depreciating in value every year that goes by and will need to be replaced at some point in time in the future. The consumption fee accounts for things like the treatment chemicals, the pumping costs, etc., making up 20% of the remaining cost. As I mentioned, this ensures that the cost to maintain our water system is paid for by all users, regardless of the consumption. And with that kind of thinking about snowbirds. So we can see on the slide here where we currently are is the base fee is currently $260. And then the average annual consumption fee is $151.20. And that's based upon the update that we did from July to December of 2024, where 30 cubic meters cost $1.26 per cubic meter. So the total annual charges currently are $411.20 if you're below that 30 cubic meters. And then kind of broken down into quarterly and monthly costs. So what's being proposed is that the base fee be changed from the $260 to $400 as the base fee. With the annual consumption fee going down. And so that would, so this $84 is based upon a 30 cubic meter average. At 70 cents a cubic meter, so that's $84 instead of the 151.20. And where that leaves us is with the annual charges. If you're below the 30 cubic meters, your annual fees would be the $484, whereas currently it's $411.20. Quarterly costs $121 versus currently it's $102.80. So it's about a $20 per quarter increase, is what we are proposing here. Next slide. So this is where it shows what we're trying to actually achieve with this. So this slide shows the impacts of the recommended changes to the village's water service financial position, with the service getting out of deficit by 2031. So we can see that black line that we saw trending, that we were going to hit that $1 million deficit by 2030 it was. Now we have reversed that, and we've actually by 2031, we have the potential of being out of deficit and working towards building those reserves so that we can actually maintain the system and not be concerned that at some point in time, we won't be able to provide clean drinking water to our residents. Next slide. So this is kind of a quick review of the rate structures and where they were and where they're going. And there's some kind of good news, bad news in this one. So we can kind of see, if we look down at the bottom slide, or at the bottom graph here. So we'll focus maybe on the 30 cubic meter users, because that's where we kind of gone last year. So the October 2023 rates, before we had made those adjustments to go down to 30 cubic meters, the average user that was using that was paying $123.80. So that was the first 2 quarters of last year. With the changes that we made in July 2024, that was brought down to $102.80. With the proposal that we were looking at to get the service back out of deficit and functioning the way it's supposed to, the proposal for the average user at 30 cubic meters is $121. We look at the average user, and that's from the water meters and that sort of thing. The average user used approximately 60 cubic meters. So the beginning of last year, or October of 2023 when it changed, that rate was $123.80, the same as the 30 cubic meters at that point in time. And that reason for that was because I believe, if I recall correctly, we had a minimum charge of 60 cubic meters, so they both would pay that exact same rate. The average user, when the rates got changed last year, so in July of last year, they were being charged $140.60 per quarter. And with the change in the structure to the higher base fee, lower consumption fee, the average user now at that 60 cubic meters, the proposed would be $149.50. One thing that I kind of wanted to note here is we do have a non-metered usage charge, what our consultant had used to put in. We're still in the process of replacing all of the meters, but we are starting to run into some issues with being able to gain access and that sort of thing as well. So the plan here is to have a 6-month grace period for residents to make an appointment, so actually to contact the village. To make an appointment, and for the 6 months. We would go with the average 30 cubic meter user, so that we're not penalizing anybody, because it's my department, it's the village that's behind on changing out those meters. So for that 6 month period, there would be a bit of a grace period, and residents would pay that $121 based upon the 30 cubic meters. Once that 6 month period was up, if we haven't been contacted and an appointment set up to install a meter, we would be looking at implementing a non-metered usage charge. And that's based upon the average usage, so that would be $49.50. And then I think going forward, we would need to leave ourselves room to be able to review this rate for increases, potentially to encourage that installation. If you have a really high user, for instance, at the rate that we're doing here, this is based upon 60 cubic meters. So if you're over the 60 cubic meters, there's really no incentive for you to contact the village and get that water meter installed. So we will have to continue to kind of reassess that as we proceed with the program.
Can I ask you a question, Mike?
Yes.
It was your idea to ask as we go. So what would we charge the people whose water meters aren't working currently, but in this plan?
The $121
A quarter?
per quarter, yes.
And after the 6 months?
Then it would go to the $149.50, which is what kind of the average user is.
So what's the non-meter usage charge then?
So the non-metered usage charge, so you can see over here the fixed rate structure. So these are the base fees
Yeah,
that work through. So for residential, they're 100.
what is the proposed tiered rate structure you were talking about
Mhm.
for 49 a
So-
quarter?
So that is the $100 base fee plus the $49.50 per quarter. The
So
tiered
that's
rate
100,
structure,
so that's $150
correct.
and that's 120. Oh, so it's the same number.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was trying to.
So we would bring people up to at least paying what the average user is. And then I think we will have to go and give a little bit more of a nudge once we get to there, but
Can I ask a question? Just a real quick one, if it's okay?
You okay with it?
I'm okay.
Okay,
Tell me, what is an average user? Is that a family of 5 or a single person by themselves?
I don't necessarily have information to that. I have the average user based upon the water meter. So the average consumption in the homes is 60 cubic meters.
Okay,
Based upon the total volume that goes through the system and the number of homes we have, sort of thing.
okay.
That's the way it's based.
and are you talking about having a minimum a minimum charge for usage, or is it just?
So you would have your base fee of the $100, and then from there, it would be based upon usage. Once you have your meter installed, it would.
So if you just use 10 cubic meters,
You
5
would.
cubic meters, it's gonna be no minimum.
If you use 10 cubic meters, it would be $7.
Five would be, $350.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Conick, did you?
Yeah, phoning the village to make an appointment, I thought that the village phoned them to make an appointment, so the plumber could go around and
I thought
So through the mayor, that is correct. We've been making appointments. We're getting down to the place where people are having either not wanting our staff or a contractor going in for whatever reason, or are having difficulty kind of making the time to be present for the appointment. And so this would be a way to kind of encourage that. The other avenue that we can look at is overtime and that sort of thing, but I think that this is in reality right now, I mean, we're gonna go down to the $21 for the 6-month grace period. I think it's a bit of a carrot, really, to encourage people to get it. It's not meant to be a stick or to it's to try and encourage people to ensure that we're getting that meter installed.
I think the other thing with a bigger carrot is to get a price on a pit meter and say, if you're not gonna allow us to go and change it in your home, we're gonna put the pit meter outside. And I know a pit meter is over 1,000, maybe even more than that. Right? So that might be the bigger carrot.
So I don't know where staff's gone, but that might be something like you try, like.
I mean, you just have a number that say, look, if you don't allow us in to change the bloody thing, which takes 10 minutes. Where the option is that we put a pit meter in your front yard and nobody wants that.
So Sean might have, but my thinking before corporate officers, that this might be something that's gonna be done for the first year. And then then something like that might be a possibility, but the corporate officer has something, yeah.
Just real quick, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we already have in our waterworks bylaw the ability to go in and put in a pit meter. And it should be by force, but what's being suggested here is sort of a softer intermediary escalated approach. So that we want people to come to us and do the right thing, so we don't have to apply these practices that are more harsh.
But we are following them. We try to make appointments. There can't be too many.
We're still a couple hundred short.
No, but people that say you can't come into my house. Can't be that many.
And Councillor Connor, we also have incomplete information. A lot of people don't have landlines anymore, so we're having a hard time
Oh,
getting
I
hold of
see.
people that don't have an email on file or a phone number on file. So we're sending bylaw out to send
Put a note on the door?
notifications. Yeah. We've been trying to capture as much information as we can to get hold of people.
So that, I'm gonna let a member of the public ask a question.
All right, it's me again. I'd just like to ask, so recently, MassCon, because my house was causing problems, was able to come and tear up my yard because they said basically, if you either do that or no service. So I don't know how it's fair for these people to say, okay, no, you can't come in and penalize everybody else in that. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, so what staff is saying, we're just gonna do that for the first year probably, and then council will make a decision to do.
Right, but in the meantime, we'll be penalized. Everybody's gonna be penalized until that happens. Is that the plan?
No, not really. Depends how much they're using. Councillor Torban.
I think what he's saying is only the people that aren't having their meter changed are gonna be penalized.
Right, but all our rates are gonna go up in the meantime.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Where that rate thing is different, right? The meter thing is, if you don't want it changed, then you pay the basic.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, our rates are all going up in the meantime, while these people are hemming and hawing and saying, we don't want you in our house,
Yeah,
which is kind of unfair.
It can go ahead.
I think I'm pretty much done on this slide. If council has any additional questions.
Any other questions from council?
I just have.
Councillor Stevens?
Yeah, so how do you know if, should anybody call? I kind of lost that a little bit. So should just anybody call the village and say, hey, come check out my water meter?
No, it would specifically be if you have a zero read on your utility bill.
Okay,
That those are the issues that we have.
awesome, thank you.
The CFO has an answer to.
And Councillor Stevens, that's something that we would put out to people to say, if your water bill has zero consumption or you have a specific code, to get a hold of us because the meter is not working. Yeah, so we would start targeting those specific.
Thank you.
So this next slide, which is page 12 in your book, this is to show, so I apologize because I didn't do the split here between the consumption and fixed rate properly. There should be an 80-20 split between the revenues. But basically, I've added the additional revenue that's come from the.
Just not sure if there's someone trying to get in the door or what's happening.
No,
but-
it's open.
Oh, sorry.
This came really quick.
Oh, there was.
No, there's somebody outside.
Somebody outside.
I think the door is open.
Sorry.
Because we can count it, we're just getting back to count, so.
Oh, this is the person. This, yeah,
These are the ones that were here.
Oh.
something going on.
I thought somebody was trying.
Yeah, it was council calling it up.
No,
Mr.
that's-
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
They don't remember me.
Don't
I
even.
do, I do. Nice to see you. Nice to see you too.
Hardest working girl we have.
Thank you. Wow, you did so good. She used to be on the fire department
Yeah.
And on public works.
and public works.
Well, just to stop this for a minute, so you're here because of,
My daughter had an appointment in Kamloops for the
Yeah.
dentist. And I just stopped by to see friends. I went and see Monique. I was there for a couple hours. And then, I'm like, I cannot leave without seeing Colin, so, yeah.
And where are you living now?
Fraser Lake.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, Fraser Lake, we've been there for 11 years. And I'm a full-time paramedic in Bandicoot. I've been working for ambulance for 9 years,
Oh, I bet they're lucky to have you.
so, yeah. I just wanted to come and say hi.
Very nice. man.
Yeah. Well, take
Okay.
care,
You too.
good job, I miss the town. Yeah. You guys take care.
okay,
Yeah.
thanks, everybody. I
Yeah.
was trying to figure out what was going on there.
Recognize her at first, so-
Yeah. Where are we at now?
Okay, page 12. So I threw in this last slide here for, just to show if we, council, went ahead with the recommendations that Waterworth and we put forward. The change would be about $100,000 more into the revenue stream, which changes the whole bottom line. And even though the graph showed, we've come out about around 2023, these numbers here, like they're just budget numbers, but they are showing that we've come out around, come out of our deficit around 2029, 2030, depending on how operations goes. So you wanted to compare the two just to see that's, what that means.
When you say a 3% increase, is that for,
Oh, yeah, so I've also put in showing, the 3% increase across the board, so that's just 3% on top of all the fees.
Yeah.
Every year, like January 1st.
so the water consumption, the flat rate? Administration, like all of them?
No,
Oh, those are expenditures,
these
so just,
these are expenses.
so just
down
the
here.
consumption and the flat rate would have a 3% each?
Yes. And then basically, to be honest, the expense side of things stays very flat, except for wages. Wages and benefits are the only thing that get indexed in our budgets. So. Yeah. Showing you what's going on there.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's just nice to see in 2029, we're almost breaking even. And maybe we will be.
That's the end of water, so if there's any additional questions, comments.
What happens, just throwing these things at me, what happens with that money? Like this, is there actually? Like the ending
Well-
balance where we owe 631, does that go anywhere? It's
It
reduced,
goes
or-
into the actual full surplus number that the auditors give us at the end of the year.
So we're gonna
But I-
get a surplus on top of these numbers? Or are you paying it?
No, it just goes in, like, all the money's in one bank account,
Yeah.
that's what you're meaning. And we just keep track of it separately in our GL between water and taxation. Because basically taxation or wastewater has been supplementing the water system all
Okay.
along.
Yeah, thank you.
Can't identify which, it's just. Oh, yeah, jumping into wastewater. It's been there's nothing exciting here. We can definitely look at wastewater and say that we don't need an increase in fees this year. We can keep them status quo moving forward, our increase in wages and the other various expenses. Mr. Baker's identified that we need some valve work in 2025 in the wastewater treatment, so we've increased one of the line items to reflect that. Otherwise, pretty much wages and insurance that are going up. I did have a chance to analyze our insurance, and this will come forward when we get into the operations, but there was probably in some of the services about $1,000 to $2,000 increase in our insurance line just for property insurance this year. I don't know what the overall increase was, but I did look at the individual services, so that's unfortunate for us. But it's the way it is with the insurance agents. So luckily for the sewer, we've run, so far we've got a surplus in the actuals for this year. Nothing else has really come forward. Our debt is coming down, so last year I had budgeted obviously too high for the interest and it's coming around 6,000. To be conservative, I've left it at 10 just because there's some year-end adjustments that happen in there. The one big thing to note here is, so we set it up, well, first we set it up with a 3% increase, but 2027, and I'll let Mr. Baker talk about this, but this is when we expect our wastewater treatment plant to come online. And that increases our amortization expense because we look at replacement of that product in the future.
Yeah, it's probably a good time maybe to give a bit of an update on the lagoons and grant and everything else, but as our CFO just did point out, that I did want to kind of highlight, there's no such thing as free money. So this $5.8 million grant, once it actually comes online, we're anticipating right now that it's gonna be completed by 2027. And once that comes online, it's gonna add another $100,000 in amortization that we're gonna need to collect from that service every single year. Every single year we'll need another $100,000 because of that $5.8 million grant. And so when we are going through with that grant, we'll be looking at it at staff level at least. Not looking at doing anything that we don't need to do. Although it was kind of a grant provided to the municipality, if we can do the work for $4.8 million and not need to spend that extra $1 million, it'll go back to the province. Because again, there's no such thing as free money. It has a 60-year life expectancy on that $5.8 million grant. And so we amortize that over the course of that 60 years, and it equates to about $100,000 a year that we're gonna have to collect from the residents because of a free grant that we received from higher levels of government. So just kind of wanted to point that out. It's a grant, it's free money, but we need to start, they require us to do the amortization on it to apply for future grants. And so they want to make sure that at the end of the day that they're not giving us $5.8 million right now and then needing to give us another 15 million or something like that in 60 years when we've just let that thing kind of completely die or that sort of thing. They're making sure that we're putting money away so that when replacements need to happen at the lagoons, that we'll have reserves that we can go and replace it.
So basically, in simple numbers for the rest of us, again, you're saying like roughly it's $6 million. But if we put $100,000 away a year for the 60 years, for the lifespan of it, we'll have enough money to replace it.
To replace it at today's cost, you're still gonna have to kind of come up with additional money, but this is higher levels of government holding our feet to the fire a little bit, making sure that we are doing some level of asset management and not just going to them with a broken system and the really negative news impacts and that sort of stuff. It's a kind of a great way that used to be used to deal with those systems. So now we deal with it through these amortization payments that we pay for. in every service that you'll see through this budget process, you'll find that amortization line, whether it's roads, sewer, water. We've had to do it all. And then just very quickly, about the lagoons and that sort of thing. So we have that $5.8 million grant. It's currently with the, say, the Ministry of Environment, but it's been rebranded at the moment. So I'm actually 100% sure on the new term. And so they're reviewing the scope of work. Prior to me bringing it back to council, they'll decide whether or not they approve it from their environmental side. And then we'll be bringing that back to council, taking a look at what's being proposed, and then going out to tender and all those processes. As we're aware, there's the new headworks that are included in there. There's the macerator. There's also things to increase the capacity of it, as there was some kind of mention previously. How are we going to take kind of these additional things? The current design actually has a new rapid infiltration basin as well as a new settling pond within that $5.8 million grant. So there are opportunities to deal with our system that maybe isn't currently acting at kind of full capacity. Saying that, that's where we're going to be looking at kind of how we can scale up and down depending on, like, we may not construct a new settling pond, for instance, at this point in time. Maybe it won't be needed until there is more development either in Chase or if we're taking more sewage flows from neighboring communities. That's it for now.
Any questions from council on this so far?
Thinking. Settling down. Just that ground down there, just. The way it is, it doesn't, there isn't a great big seam of gravel that it takes it away. The very first one they ever put in there never worked the day they put it in. It just, it gets to a certain height and its own pressure pushes it into the ground.
As a part of the grant, we have been over the last 18 months or so, we have been revitalizing some of the existing rapid infiltration basins as well, tilling them, putting in some new sand media to increase the capacity and the functionality of it that we are paying for out of this grant as well.
We did all of it.
Yeah.
Changed all of it, we renovated it. Every time we could ever get it down, we dug number one, we dug down as deep as we could go and put pit rock or just drain rock in, and it's ditch right to the river.
Okay, anything else from council at this time? Councilor Bonnet, you're good.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that's our financial status for wastewater. Quick review, same thing, you know, we had our January to June bylaw, which ended us, minimum charge was $365.40 for the year. Our new bylaw that came forward in the July 1st was $279, and annual charge and proposed there was no changes in for this year. With everything that's going on, we can get by in that service and still get it pretty close to break even, hopefully. That's, yeah. If there's any other questions? Mr. Johnson?
I think we were good on that one.
And the other problem child we have going on is our solid waste service. That's the next invitation, so. We've had quite a few repairs this year, which has brought us up from, if you look at the budget to actual, we're up about 8,000. The repairs themselves, I think, were over budget by about 15,000, so we have some, you know, part of the expenses that are under, and that's where it's over. Our shipping fees and our fuel were right on budget, so that's a really good story there. with the increases coming up into the future, so this might be brief, but I'll just quickly touch on the amortization. So in our capital asset schedule, a truck is supposed to last 7 years. So our truck is maxed out on amortization, which means we're not collecting any more money through our amortization calculation to replace that truck. So this year, the expense line will be this 23,000 rather than 40 that we've been budgeting. Going into 2025, we're looking at replacing this truck. We're looking at about 18 months for replacement to get something into service, which means that won't be until 2026. So what I recommended as part of this 2025 budget here down at the bottom is that we continue to budget the total of the 40, because we're gonna need money to get the truck into service. It's gonna need whatever they need to put on the truck to make it usable. Like, once we get it, it's not ready to go. We have to make it usable. Does that make sense? I don't know what you have to do. We'll put decals on it and lights and radios and, Yeah.
Village isn't gonna put it on it.
but you need a radio, do other things, but whatever.
There'd be a few.
Yeah, so anyway, that's my recommendation, is that we keep that 40,000 in the budget and have that money for whatever we need for a new truck, or who knows, maybe we might need it for the old truck in 2025. But putting in a 10% increase is what I put in here to hopefully, make this service close to break even, give us a $1,100 surplus. Going to the next screen, kind of what I proposed, this was something that I thought about, with that 10% increase, was to actually combine the basic fee and the container lease, so that we don't have as much confusion on our utility statement. The container lease just goes into general revenue. We don't set it aside. So there's really no sense having the two line items. I don't feel, unless Mr. Baker thinks that we do need to have that. So the proposal here was it's just over 10%. It doesn't have to be, it could be 10% right on the nose, but just to show you that it could go, the 181 is where we're paying right now per annual, and the 10% would go up to 200 annually. So an increase of $5 a quarter, just under $5 a quarter per residence.
Can you explain when you said the container fee? You said general revenue, that's not,
General revenue within the solid waste.
Okay, thank you.
So see, we have the two lines here.
no, that's good.
Yeah.
Just when you said general revenue.
And what I mean by that is it's not being put into a reserve for future containers. We have a large supply of containers. We have a line item in this service for container.
Councilor Connell?
Yeah, but can you go back? So the 271.9, that is operating cost, that's what it costs to pick up the garbage? Is that what that means?
This one here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Holy shit.
So we've also put a contingency in 2025 to more repairs. Because even if we ordered a truck right now, we wouldn't have it until middle of 2026.
We are looking at it. So,
Yeah, so we just have to remember some of that stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Under-
Did you have Councilor Stevens? Nothing. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe just quickly, I did, maybe just to point out here too, and I think council is very aware of this, but the public maybe isn't totally aware of it. But the Recycle BC revenue, the very first kind of line in there, we don't actually pay, we don't charge our residents for recycling. We actually it's a revenue generator for the service. So $48,900 is the anticipated. The anticipated is pretty darn close to the actual there, so good job. But yeah, that's a revenue that we receive to help subsidize the rest of the service.
And if Mr. If I could just add to that, so the recycling program that we have, there's a cost to it, but we don't charge our residents for it. So they don't get charged for a bin rental, they don't get charged for, so when they get their bill, there's nothing on there that they pay towards the actual recycling program, even though the truck has to go and pick it up, picking up garbage anyway, but, yeah, so, but that is a bit of a revenue generator from recycling.
Who charged for the bins,
Not for the recycling bins, only for garbage.
only for the garbage bin?
Yeah.
What they can recycle, they get on the floor.
And to pay those revenues to each community or service provider as well.
And, you know, and that's a good one to bring up because the more we can recycle, like when we're looking for tax breaks,
Yes.
so we do this through the service through the TNRD, and they identified 50% of garbage is actually organic waste. So they're targeting that, because if you want to reduce the costs, it's the individual citizens can actually help by putting the proper items in recycle and the proper items in the garbage. I mean, 50% of what they're picking up is just organics, let alone other recycling materials. So you know, there is an opportunity for the public to, and it's on us too to educate. I need to be educated. Any little computer thing when I go to, you know, and tells me what. Thank you.
So, yeah, that's the end of, solid waste. If there's any questions?
Any questions from council?
The last few slides are just bringing the whole service together, so this. I'm not sure what page this is on, but this is what where we're at right now. What is up in okay, so this is where we're at right now. This is the minimum quarterly charge, the $217.90. And then based on the proposals that we brought forward to council today, that will bring it up to $240.75.
Okay, now I have questions.
Yeah, so pretty quick, you're gonna have an opportunity.
Okay.
Then basically, yeah, the next steps is council direction now on changes in the water billing structure. Changes to the solid waste management fees. No changes to the wastewater billing structure and other considerations. Yeah.
Any questions from
Oh,
council?
and last was the budget timelines, just as a reminder.
Any
Sorry.
questions from council on this presentation? This is where the member of public, there's gonna be an opportunity at the end of the meeting to ask questions about the whole thing, and it's coming up pretty quick. Councilors, did you have?
Yeah, and just like, there's no recommendation or anything, this isn't happening today, you know, there's gonna be more time for discussion and back and forth with the village, so, thank you very much. I think you've done, you said that council's done a great job bringing down the rates, but I think you've done a great job balancing our utilities, so thank you.
Yeah.
And that's all I have.
Yeah, thank you, councilors. Councilor Connor?
Is there any way, this, I've heard this before, and I don't know, so is there any ways of taking different communities with their tax base, the same as we're having here, to bring out to the public, okay, these are what they're paying, and no, we're not the highest, we're not the lowest, but we're just an average of everybody else, and that,
Yeah. you bet.
What was your answer?
Well, basically what I'd like to say to council is that we would like to do that, and it is actually on our list to do some comparison, get some comparisons. Water, sewer, garbage, other utilities. Now, not every community services are, you know, we can't say, okay, Sycamoose is exactly the same as Chase, because it's not.
yeah.
But we can based on the type of service and the type of water treatment plant, for example. We can get some comparisons for example, for water rates, garbage rates, taxation, that sort of thing. We can definitely do that.
Check with interview.
Okay, so, motion to accept that report for information, Councilor Stevens, Councilor Torban. All in favor? It's carried, thank you very much, staff, and last. Oh, not last, but 9.3 pedestrian improvements, Shepherd Road Active Transportation Grant. And Director of Corporate Operations will provide background on this grant opportunity. Director of Corporate Operations, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So there is an opportunity for the village to apply for a grant to help pay for some of the costs anticipated for building a Shepherd Road and specifically the sidewalk. And I just want to draw a really quick analogy. Your family's decided to buy an electric vehicle. Yeah, $50,000. You've already made the decision, you've saved the money, you're gonna go and do it, and then incentive pops up or a grant. And all it's gonna do is just help you with your purchase. And so I just use that analogy for this project here is that we've already got the budget put aside from the Growing Communities Fund, which we received that 1.54 million from the province. This grant this active transportation grant will just help us pay for the sidewalk portion, which is the yellow on the map that I've handed out. And so that's all. We're just trying to reduce our costs, overall cost of the project. Now, I want to also draw your attention to the other two red boxes that I put on that map. Those red boxes.
Do members of the public have a copy of what we're talking about?
Yeah, I'm just having a whole time with Dave.
No, it's not actually.
Oh, no.
I can put it up here.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Do you need your copy, Mike?
I was gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
There
you.
we go. Thank you.
I've never had
It's so hard.
We've got copies, Sean.
Can see it.
Yeah.
You-
There we go. Good job.
You don't play with it, you lose it.
Gonna try.
After all that, you don't see where the red lines are on here, but This, you can just follow my mouse here. So there are two BC housing projects. So those red boxes identify the off-site improvements. So these are the improvements that those projects, those two BC housing projects will have to contribute to the municipal good. So our infrastructure, that fronts their project. So some of the roads, some of the lighting, some of the sidewalks, some of all these things. So they're responsible for up to the halfway line of the road and any improvements that are within that area. So that's also going to reduce their overall cost in the project, is the contributions from those two projects. Between the active transportation grant, which we hope to get, and we're asking tonight for council blessing to apply for that grant. And then these two BC housing projects, our costs for completing this thoroughfare, which will revitalize that whole area and provide another conduit for the pedestrians, motorists, equal, everything. It's going to be a real success. Yeah, so our ask is that council just authorize the administration to apply for the grant, and we just cross our fingers and hope we get it. Questions?
What we can do is we can do the recommendation and then go to questions without.
I'll just move that staff apply for the active transportation grant.
So there is something written.
Huh?
There's something written there if you want to go with that.
Oh. Okay, I'll move that. I'll move that council supports the application for housing infrastructure and Communities Canada capital project funding to pursue pedestrian improvements along Shepherd Road, and that the village of Chase will contribute the remaining 40% of the project's cost and will project overruns. That one?
Yeah. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Conick. Now we can do discussion. Any discussion from council?
Oh, it's great. If we can get the.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna make a good comment, but no, that's fine.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Now we go to number 10, public input. So here's your public. We allow 15 minutes, which is state your name and address, and
Okay, Paula, I live on the side,
Paula,
the pickle.
can you spell that for staff, please?
P-I-P-P-O, perfect, with a space. Sometimes. I say space. No, okay. After the B. Right, gotcha. Sometimes, some people don't do it. Okay, water bills. I see 3% increase across the top. Well, my highest water bill before we had jumped to 260 was 172. When I did the math, that was a 66% increase. Then it dropped down to 217.90, which was very nice, but that's still a 35% increase. So I'm not understanding where I see anywhere on my water bills, and I can go back to October. I don't even know what year that was. Anyway, that was only 150. So, and I see just that you talk to people in Enderby. I have a friend there. She pays $200 three times a year. And she has a big yard and she raises all her own flowers and plants and vegetables and all that. And she averages 200. But I mean, they, anyway. So, and now it's going up to 240. So that's probably about a 55% increase. It is.
No.
It's just a thorn in my. And all my other bills go up like everybody else's, and I'm not complaining about those. But when I can go away for 3 weeks out of a water period and still pay 66% more than I should. Like, I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. And I have a meter that works. So, yeah, I'm not even trying to. I don't know. I just don't know what to say. Just never ends when you don't have it.
Yeah, so you were saying you're just talking about water,
Yes, just my water bills.
and you were paying how much?
Okay, the highest I paid was 260.
was, actually, before it jumped to 260 was 172.33.
Yep.
And then after that, it went to the 260, and then it dropped down to 217.90. Which is still, the 217.90 is a 35% increase. From what I was paying from the 170. Right, and then the other one, when it jumped up to 260, that was a 66, about 66% increase. So I'm not sure where I'm seeing 3% this year, 3% next year, maybe 10% this year, but my numbers are not going there.
Just seeing staff flip through things, are you flipping through anything or?
No.
Oh. Is that, yes,
Maybe one thing, just to clarify on that, the 217.90 is not just for water though, right?
That's all of it, like,
Yeah,
these are the
water,
entire bill.
sewer, and-
Yeah, I mean, I just keep a list of my bills.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's
like,
your
so,
utilities,
these are
Those
just
utilities.
the water bill that comes every 3 months or whatever.
which includes garbage and. sewer.
Yes,
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
this is the whole bill,
Yeah.
right? It went up to 260. You guys remember that? You remember it dropped down to 217?
No.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, those are, the 260 was the 66% increase from what I was paying, and not using and drop more. And I mean, I think one of the ladies in here said, oh, you might as well just run a hose outside. Like-
yeah, so,
Like,
so part of what was happening was we're charging enough out of the utility and staff will get a hold of it, but, and it was being made up by general revenue, so the charge was always there, it was just hidden in your household tax. So you were paying more, you were paying more, right, money was just coming out of your household tax.
you lost me.
So you pay what taxes on what your assessed property is, the assessment of your house? You
Is
pay
that where the
taxes.
water bill comes from?
No, but it was being subsidized by that in the past. It was being, yeah, it was, so it was being subsidized by that, and we're not allowed to do that, so now we're,
I'm not sure what you mean, because I paid, when my taxes come up, I pay them.
well, you pay like $2,000 or $3,000 a year for your house tax.
No, I pay around, or because I'm a senior too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Okay, I pay around 1,000.
yeah, so you're actually doing, you're doing
So
pretty
I'm
good.
actually good.
Yeah, you're actually doing, so money was taken out of that to subsidize the water and mainly the water system. And now we're not doing that anymore.
I don't understand.
Okay, we'll just one at a, I just, this lady, we'll just we'll do one at a time. And this,
This goes back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 water bills.
yeah, so it's,
So
our public works manager mentioned this, so that's not a water bill, it's water, sewer and
yes,
garbage.
yeah, that's what I mean. I
Yeah.
call it all water bill, but it's like
Yeah.
the one bill that comes every few months and,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, yeah.
So when you compare it to your Enderby person, you're comparing,
She's paying, and she has a family of 4.
but is that water, sewer and garbage for her?
Yes, yes,
Okay, okay.
yeah, she showed me her bill.
And that's something I think Councillor Connor did ask, the staff's gonna look at to see
Yeah,
what
I
other
heard- I mean-
communities. Councillor Torban.
I mean, we can compare, we'll put a comparison thing out for you to look at, rather than debate the whole thing, because I just talked to the, mayor from Revelstoke, and they're paying way more than us for those same utilities. So everybody's different, every town is different, you can't say Enderby unless you have the actual figures, and we'll give you the actual figures.
Actually, I seen the water bill,
But what we'll do is.
but I don't have a copy. I
We'll
didn't
make
take
it
a picture.
easier for you by giving you the actual numbers rather than guessing,
Right,
okay?
right.
Maybe that would be easier for you.
I just don't understand where I'm seeing on these boards 3% increase and mine's working at the 66. That's the part I don't understand.
Comparing apples and oranges.
I mean, if mine was 172 and it went up 3%, that would be about 175 times 3 is,
Well, the 3% was the proposed,
was it proposed, right,
okay,
but not 66.
no, for the future. The utilities is what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to me.
No, that's good for us to understand too. So who would like to go next? Okay, Jean,
Okay. Last year when I came in with the water bills and I gave you why we had water meters, I gave you everything on what a water meter was supposed to do. And we should have had money in our contingency fund, which you guys have spent. And all you've done is completely increase every year the utility bills. Now, all those water meters should have been replaced by last summer because they knew who they were. It's gonna be a hot, dry summer this year. And people aren't gonna water. There's gonna be a lot of dry lawns in Chase. But there's nothing we can do about it until these water meters are put in, and they're put in for the purpose of charging people for what they use. Not if they're away for 6 months, that's so unfair. And now another 10% on your waste water fund management. And the increase in the taxes last year at 10%. I went to Kamloops, they were at 7, went to Langley, they were at 7.5, Chase is at 10. And now you want to contribute a 40% for project over cost or any overruns. How can we be giving away this money that we don't have right now? The village of Chase does not have it. But you can give 40% of project costs and cover any project overruns. Nothing is making sense to
What-
me
so-
on how the council is
this 40% you're talking about, what are you referring to?
on your last,
Well, so that's actually saving us money.
well, it says that you will contribute 40% of project costs and cover any project overruns.
So I don't know if staff wants to run through that one again, but we had budgeted for that whole project.
Yeah.
Already. And by doing this, we're actually gonna save 60% of the cost of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So we're actually saving money by doing this. By
But
doing
if
that
you-
project.
If you overrun, you're going to be.
That's right. So the
right.
corporate officer will.
I'll just clear up.
So-
Okay.
It's not, it's the 40 is not an overrun. The active transportation grant will
Yeah.
cover 60%,
Right.
so we were at 100% for the project.
Okay,
Okay, so we get a grant that will pay 60%.
okay,
So our portion is only 40% of that project.
now I understand.
Okay.
Now I understand, and thank you for
Well,
clarifying that.
but, and thanks for coming to the meeting and asking questions.
But, you know, I'm just, I got one more.
Was it, did you want to contribute something else, corporate officer, or was that?
Only it's just sort of a subtlety of applying for grants, is sometimes the grant agency requires certain language, and that's just language that they require in the resolution. It doesn't mean that the project's going to be overrun, the grantor wants certainty that they're not gonna be on the hook for it. So it's really not our language, it's the grant agency language.
If you have some,
I just want you to really think about all these increases you're doing to the seniors. You know, our pensions don't go up like your wages have. They just don't. But you keep increasing everything. When I came here in 2014, I paid $1,000 a month for taxes. I now pay $2,500. In 10 years, that's almost 150% increase. And I get nothing more for it. So you're obviously getting the money from everybody in town. Well, I want to know where that's going.
hey, Counselor Torban,
I just, you have to remember that tax you pay, okay, That's not all of Chase's taxes. We don't get that money. So there's a hospital tax that we have to pay. We have no choice. There's TNRD tax, we have to pay, we have no choice. There's school tax that we have to pay, there's no choice. So what happens is, those things, they increase it by so many percent. So if we don't, like, we have to pay that increase regardless, right? So when you get your tax bill, those the increases are incorporated to that bill. That's not for the city of Chase. That's for those separate entities. And we have no choice. We have to pay that.
I understand. So when, and it's gone through all of BC, so when other communities come up with 7% and 8%, but you come up with 10%.
And so to answer that one, and the CFO can come in, so their city accountants is 7% would be
Yeah.
how many millions of dollars? Probably
They have a
50
much
million,
more-
probably $50 million. Our 10% is 200,000. Rough numbers, so you can't, right, so they're generating, like, I'm just guessing, $50 million from their 7%, where our 10% generates $200,000.
That's right.
Yeah, so
Then why doesn't the council have incentive to open some of these buildings and have people like Apple or that come in to increase our revenue in the village of Chase? I mean, we have nothing, really.
You can welcome who you want, they gotta come here, they have to want to come here and come on down, yeah, absolutely.
I think we should encourage people to come.
And spend your money in
Small
Chase.
Apple store or something like they have an entity.
Yeah,
somewhere for people
once
to
they
get
want,
something.
once they wanna come here, they're more than welcome.
okay, so we got this last gentleman.
Okay.
I forgot your name already.
Dale Blanchard,
Thank you.
411 Larch.
Thank you.
I just want to touch on a couple of things. In regards to water, I have a 3/4 inch service. And most people probably don't even realize what 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch service means. Whatever. But we use 30 cubic meters roughly. We're in that category because we're just 2 people. My neighbors, they pay less, they have 1/2 inch service, and they're just 2 people and they use around the same rate of water. But we're still paying more for the service, even though we're not using it all. I just want to point that out because that is something that's looked at for the increase and not really thought about, because we should all be encouraged to conserve water. And we do try hard not to waste water. And I'd like to see everybody commit to that, but like I said, it's something to think about because we're getting an arbitrary increase. I mean, you guys aren't gonna dig down and put in a 1/2 inch line so we can save money. That doesn't seem, right? So, I'm trying to say in that way. And I understand what you're saying about finances for the wastewater and sewer. Those are needed, they're necessities. There's something we absolutely need and we need to put money into. I don't disagree with that, but what I would like to see from mayor and council is an effort to maybe help bring down our tax bill for property taxes and the equivalent that we're gonna end up paying in utility tax going forward, or utility fees rather, going forward, because if I spend too much and get in debt, I have to buckle down and I can't afford certain things in order to pay down that debt and continue on having a roof over my head and having clean water and sewer, all that. So it's just something I'd like everybody to really think hard about because it's important. I mean, we've got to buckle down and like, we understand this. I don't run a village or anything, but I understand household and you gotta buckle down sometime. Take care of what's needed and then restrict your expenditures on less important things until you get to a point where you can go back to spending money on those things. That's what I'd like to get across. And I'm going in surgery next month. I'd like to come to more of these meetings. I don't know if I'll be able to get to them. But I'm I'm gonna try.
Yeah, it's good, I'll just second Councilor Khan, I'll get you. It's good that you're coming, but these meetings are recorded.
Yep.
So you'll be able to, on Zoom, but some of the questions you're asking, and you're saying, right, there's gonna be other, like, there's gonna be a budget workshop.
Yep.
Other budget workshops talking about what you were getting at.
No, I understand, and I
Yeah.
might not be able to do much because I'm gonna have trouble getting to my computer and all that stuff. Like I am going to be very restricted in what I'm able to do in the next month or so.
But any suggestions you have when it's printed out, you know, you can write or pass them along. if
I'll try,
possible.
I'll try,
Yeah.
I'll try.
Councilor Khan, you had a
Yeah,
question?
well, I didn't understand what you were talking about, the size of the water line going into your house.
So every house has water lines incoming to them.
Yeah.
When they have water, and ours is a 3/4 inch line.
3/4 inch line to your house.
Right, some people have a 1/2 inch line, which is smaller, right? So they're charged less because they have a smaller line going into the house.
No, they're not.
Yeah, no, it's in your sheet, that's
For
true.
a 1/2 inch line, I mean, someone on.
They're charged less for a 1/2 inch line.
Said some on large are 1/2 inch, some even have, they split that, they'll come in with a 3/4 and they'll branch off like this.
Yeah,
I think you should have the same amount of volume. Well, it'll
Well-
increase a little bit, volume, yeah.
well, I mean, but I'm paying more than they are because I have a bigger line into my house, right?
Can staff answer that question?
So,
In the basic, one of the basics, yeah.
yeah. So just taking a quick look at Waterworth's work. I don't know if we have any 1/2 inch, but we do have 5/8, which is very close to 1/2 inch.
Oh, maybe that's it
Um,
anyways.
and so, yes, the proposed fixed rate structure, the base fee. For the 5/8 was $100, was $100 per quarter. And for the 3/4, it is $146.50.
Coming in the house, every house goes to 1/2 inch, and once you're in the house, it goes to 1/2 inch.
No, our 3/4 comes in.
All of it, it's right through the house?
Well, after it comes, it only goes down to going into the hot water.
It just, this is it's coming into the house, it should reduce down to 1/2 inch.
Can staff explain, like, why is there a difference in the lines? Do we know that, or can you come back with something?
No, I can speak to that. So
Yeah.
it actually doesn't matter from this perspective. It's not the service size, it's the water meter size. So most of our water meters are 3/4 inch by 5/8 inch. And so it's a 3/4 inch service that comes from the street, comes to your water meter, and then 5/8 out of the meter. All of those people would be paying the 5/8, $100 base fee. There might be a few circumstances out there where there's a 3/4 inch all the way through, but the water meter itself is quite a bit more expensive for that. And so generally speaking, the only time that you would have a 3/4 inch all the way through is a specific request by a resident, and it would be because they have if you were building a brand new nice home down on Lake Shore with 5 bathrooms and stuff like that, you quite possibly would need a 3/4 inch, possibly even a 1 inch. Water service would be what you would require to get water if you had a party and everybody was using the bathrooms. And so that's the reason for it, but
But I'm paying monthly or quarterly, I'm paying more than people with smaller lines.
That's almost a historical reason why it's got a different size.
I don't know why.
we could
Yeah,
we could
Yeah, we need to look into this.
and because there is a potential, at any point in time in the future, when we need to replace that water meter, it would be a lot cheaper for us to go in and put in 3/4 by 5/8 inch, and then that would deal with that.
I'll bet you $10 for a donut, it is 5/8.
But
When they did it, they would
You
have
might be
reduced
right,
it,
I don't
they
know.
would have reduced it.
what we're gonna do is staff will follow up with you if you want.
Follow up, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
If
yeah,
you,
no,
if you leave a
I
contact
think-
for staff.
I have to look at my bill to know for sure.
Yeah, but it's just a good thing if you leave a contact, if you can leave a contact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be able to. Do we have an email for you or?
You have phone number.
So staff can follow up. because-
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
Should everybody get their lines measured? Maybe that's one.
Well, I don't, the thing is, what I have trouble comprehending is. Regardless of your line size, if you're using, 30 cubic meters of water, you're still using 30 cubic meters of water, so I don't know why line size should make a difference in price.
Or maybe they just use less water.
Well, no, we use 30 cubic meters is not a lot of water, that's 2 people.
We're gonna get staff to look into your individual case and then bring it back, because maybe there'll be more, but,
Okay.
yeah. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you, and just so the public knows, we went 10 minutes over time.
Yeah.
Cool. 5 or 10 minutes, because it's really good when you do come. I think it's important to, to hear from the public.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
if you don't mind me interrupting, is there anyone possibly on Zoom?
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Is there anybody on Zoom that has any questions at this time? That I know? Okay. You're good? Thank you. So no notice of motion, no in camera. No release of in-camera items. Motion to adjourn the meeting, Councillor Torbonne, Councillor Stevens. All in favor, carried, thank you.